else would know the details that I've given you on maps, photographs, events leading up to it, what happened after. Who else would know all that there except one of the ones who was involved? That was me.
This man is confessing to mass murder, the indiscriminate slaughter of 21 people and the maiming of 162 more. The Birmingham pub bombings in November 1974 remain the IRA's bloodiest attack on the British mainland. 15 years later, there's widespread unease over whether the real culprits are behind bars. In Dublin last month, thousands took to the streets to show their concern over the conviction of the Birmingham Six. While in Britain, 1 in 6 MPs has added their name to calls for a public inquiry. Tonight, for the first time, a man admits that he bombed the pubs.
There never will be, there never can be any justification for taking the lives of innocent people. And again, it's something I will have to live with. There's no one can know what I'm going through. And I've got to live with those nightmares.
As Home Secretary, I would make sure that the police were aware of this film, that my people would talk to them and say, this is why the Home Secretary wants it looked at again, and as part of their ongoing investigation, eventually, to come back to the Home Secretary.
The Birmingham Six protest their innocence while each serves 21 life sentences for murder. They pin their hopes on a new police inquiry which could take them back to court. But hundreds of miles from Birmingham in the Irish Republic, there's detailed testimony about the case which can't be considered by a court. Here we've identified the man we've traced, who now admits he was one of the two who did bomb the pubs. For this unprecedented interview, he adopted a disguise of his own making. The law forbids our broadcasting his voice, and an actor now repeats him word for word.
Well, I looked under the bench where I was sitting, and there was a gap between the bottom of the bench and the floor, and I pushed the bag under there with my foot. And again, the other guy said, was it okay now? And I says it was. And so he looked at his watch, as if to make out we were late for an appointment or something, saying, let's go.
The carnage of the Birmingham pub bombs shamed even the IRA. It was 11 years before they'd admit the bombs were theirs.
It's all right for him coming, now it's all gone. Now it's all over.
Public anger was pushed to breaking point. It was answered by the hurried introduction of the Prevention of Terrorism Act and swift arrests. Today, the Birmingham Six remain in prison on the strength of confessions 4 of them signed. 2 years ago, the appeal court rejected evidence from witnesses who supported the men's claims that police had beaten confessions from them. Conservative MP Sir John Farr began challenging the men's conviction in 1980. He doesn't believe the appeal court judgment is the end of the case.
I don't think so, because there were many people who were at the appeal court and who listened to surprise with the decision, who were convinced that it was a wrong decision and that it's a case that'll come back, and this particular refusal is just, so to speak, a step on the road to their eventual release.
October last year, Gerard Conlon takes his first steps to freedom after 15 years in jail. The release of the Guildford Four, their convictions for IRA pub bombings quashed by the appeal court, focused new attention on the Birmingham Six.
Totally innocent man. I watched my father die in a British prison for something he didn't do. He is innocent, the Maguires is innocent. Let's hope the Birmingham Six
Evidence had been found of police making up confessions in the Guildford case. Now, a former appeal court judge has begun an inquiry. Sir John May has already accepted that 7 others jailed in another case linked to the Guildford bombings were wrongly convicted. The clearing of Annie Maguire and 6 of her family and friends after 15 years of protesting their innocence has intensified pressure on the Home Secretary to hold a public inquiry into the Birmingham case.
sooner or later that new inquiry is going to be held, and it would do the Home Secretary's reputation a great deal of good if you set it up here and now.
I think if the right honourable gentleman just thinks about the situation for a moment or two, he will agree with me that I am right to say that I will consider carefully what the main inquiry says about...
Home Secretary David Waddington won't hold a public inquiry, but he's ordered a further police investigation following submissions by lawyers acting for the six.
...it might have for the safety of other convictions.
And I served a 21-day sentence for nothing, for something I don't even know anything about.
Gartree Prison, Leicestershire, and the voice of one of the six, Paddy Hill, which we recorded 5 years ago.
We called to be charged because on the night that the bombings happened, we were travelling home to Ireland.
The 754 connecting with the Belfast ferry is now leaving platform 9.
This is a right bloody scramble.
So there were 6 of us that met at the New Street station. 5 of us travelled on the train.
Earlier that day in the West Midlands, Sinn Féin staged a public farewell for a dead IRA bomber whose body was sent back to Belfast. He'd blown himself up trying to bomb a telephone exchange. James McDade had been known to some of the six since childhood. The 5 going to Belfast planned to go to his funeral. A martyr's send-off for a bomber from a region plagued by IRA bombs prompted public protest. More than 50 bombs had caused £500,000 worth of damage. A bomb disposal man had been killed.
There had been this whole chapter of outrages. And the police, and quite rightly so, were not necessarily under pressure from the Home Secretary, but they are certainly under pressure from public opinion to get results.
The train now arriving at platform 2 is the 755 from Birmingham connecting with the Belfast ferry.
When 5 of the 6 got off the train to catch the Belfast ferry, they were stopped by the police. They were back in Birmingham within 24 hours under escort by armed detectives. They were interrogated at a city police station where they claimed they were beaten and terrorised. Within 48 hours of the bombings, 4 had signed confessions. They described their actions that night. As the IRA's worst-ever bombing mission got underway, they travelled into the city centre by bus.
You'll have to lend us a train fare. Everyone a few quid on me.
The account of the man who now admits the bombings contradicts theirs completely.
It was considered better that we'd walk rather than take public transport because, again, due to the risk of injury to civilian people. A car was out of the question because you couldn't leave a car anywhere near.
The man's account of that night starts with his being picked up by another IRA man. 2 people, not 6, carried out the bombing, he says.
This person came to see me in the early part of the evening. He said that there was an operation planned. I asked him what it was, and he said it would be a need-to-know basis, and that I would be told what I needed to know. He took me by car to a destination where I assumed bombs of some sort were going to be picked up. At this stage, I didn't know what kind. That was it. I was also given a firearm, and when I was asked what it was for, I was told it was for my own protection. I think I realised then it was something major. He told me we were going to walk to the targets, and I naturally agreed. He stopped and said it was time to prime the bombs. He fiddled in my bag first, and then he fiddled in his own, and says, right, that's been primed. That's when I asked what the targets would be. He told me the first one was to be placed in the tax office on New Street, and the other to be placed in the rotunda.
The tavern in the town was a basement pub alongside the tax office. One of the bombs was to be placed here, among the early evening customers.
I asked him about, is there any likelihood of people being hurt? I was assured that there would be plenty of warning given, and that Civilians weren't a target. The tax office, being a government building, was a target. And the rotunda, being a prestige symbol, was the other target.
The rotunda, a cylindrical tower of offices which dominates Birmingham's city centre skyline, was a regular IRA target. But this bomb was to be placed at the base of it. There was a pub there too, the Mulberry Bush. Again, a bomb was to be left in the bar among the customers.
Birmingham Post and Mail, good evening.
The code word is XX. There is a bomb planted in the rotunda, and there is a bomb in New Street at the tax office. The code word is XX.
Hello?
The man who admits the bombing says he believed a warning call would allow the pubs to be cleared of people. But within 6 minutes, the first bomb exploded in the Mulberry Bush at the base of the rotunda. The rotunda is a stone's throw from New Street Station. The Birmingham Six had met there half an hour or so before the bombs went off. Here, they decided who was going to carry which bomb into which pub, according to their confessions.
Where you been? Where you been? The train's gone.
We're all right. There's another one yet. Come on. Let's go and get ourselves sorted out.
They were said to have planted the bombs and returned to catch the train. The two pubs were very different in style and layout. We decided to test the recollections of the man who says he bombed the pubs alongside what was said in the Birmingham Six confessions. To test the man's confession, we used unpublished official photographs and scale plans to construct computer-generated models of the two pubs. First, the tavern in the town. Richard McIlkenny was one of the six who confessed to bombing the pub. This was his only recollection of the place.
We went in by going down some stairs. It was dark and smoky.
The man who now admits planting the bombs insists this was the only occasion he visited either pub.
We passed by the front of the railway station after the bombs were primed, and then round the rotunda into New Street, then down into the tavern.
The man's description of the pub tallies with the computer model.
It was just steps down into, I think there was probably 2 or 3 flights down into it. There was a right turn, and then down some more steps right into the actual bar itself.
John Walker, the other one of the six who confessed to bombing the tavern, said only...
I know we went down 2 lots of stairs. It was packed.
He said nothing of what he could see from the bottom of the stairs.
The bar was directly ahead of me, straight ahead. And around the wall were alcoves with possibly wall lights lighting up each alcove, and a few tables and chairs spread here about. The bar was like a horseshoe shape, if I recall. It was pretty crowded with people standing around it. I couldn't get in to get a good look at it. I think possibly I noticed the toilets were at the very back, that's to the left as you come down the stairs, at the very back. They were on a separate wall at the base, to the back of the bar. I mean, for me to be able to see them from the stairs, it would be like the doors are facing me when I look left from the bottom of the stairs.
Again, his recollection matches the computer model.
The upholstery on the chairs and on the benches, I seem to have, as it were, more of an impression of things being red, so they could have been possibly red.
Forensic experts combed through the wreckage of the tavern in the town, examining tiny fragments. The upholstery, they confirmed, had been red.
He has a knowledge of the inside of these two pubs, which would not be possessed unless he had actually been there for a specific purpose, compared to the Birmingham Six, who, in their particular trial, there was no great detailed knowledge displayed by any of the six of the whereabouts or details of the interior of the two pubs concerned.
There's even less information about the Mulberry Bush in the confessions of the Birmingham Six. Hugh Callahan, one of those who admitted bombing the pub, gave no description of it at all.
I'd never been in the Mulberry Bush before. I seem to remember that if you came in through the front doors of the Mulberry Bush, you could walk directly straight to the bar.
15 years after the bombings, his recollection matches our computer model of the pub. Billy Parr, the other one of the Birmingham Six who confessed to bombing the pub within 24 hours, gave the only convincing detail of entering the bar.
I walked in from the left-hand side as I came to it. I turned right inside and down a couple of steps.
We entered by the back entrance. I could be wrong, but I think I remember some stairs of some sort. If you come in through the back door, you have to turn round to your right to reach the bar. And there was a table and chair sitting just to the right as you walked in through the back entrance. And that's where the bomb was placed, against the wall, under the chair.
Only two groups of people can say with any precision how the Birmingham pubs were bombed and where the bombs were planted. There's the few who've had access to the detailed findings of experts who sifted through the wreckage, and there are those who actually planted them. John Walker, who confessed to bombing the tavern in the town with another of the six, said,
"We went straight to the bar. I said, let's get out. We put the parcel down."
Using unpublished plans and photographs and details buried in the scientists' findings, it's possible to test an account of how and where the bombs were planted. We first showed a plan to the man who admits he planted the bombs.
This being New Street here, and this being the entrance to the tavern here. We come up New Street and then through this way here, down the stairs, and then the short flight of stairs here, the bar being directly ahead of us. We stood roughly about here before I being pointed towards this alcove here and was told to go and sit down. The other person went to the bar to order drinks.
Richard McO'Kenny was the other one of the Birmingham Six to confess to bombing the tavern. He said only 7 words about planting a bomb.
I put my bag in an alcove.
The tavern in the town had 6 alcoves. Which would a bomber choose?
We turned to our right and I was pointed towards this alcove here, which was, I realised, as near as we could get to the tax office, the base of the tax office. He said, "I want you to leave your bag where it is. If I could kick it under the chair, if at all possible." I looked under the bench I was sitting on, and there's a gap between the bottom of the bench and the floor. I placed my foot behind the bag and slid it under the gap. Like I say, I only stayed for a couple of minutes and I was extremely nervous. He looked at his watch as if we were late for an appointment or something, and he said, "Right, let's go." He was carrying the other bag. So we walked up the stairs again. I left my bag where it was.
There was the clearest evidence of the seat of the explosion, a hole blasted through the concrete floor. No plans have ever been published which show where. We challenged the man who admits he's a bomber to mark where he left the bomb.
I had the bag at my feet, here. And then I was told to leave my bag where it was. With my feet, I pushed it under the bench, here. And that's where I left it.
The plan of the tavern in the town covers hundreds of square feet. This man has marked the seat of the explosion within 3 or 4 feet.
The man knows something about the Birmingham case that others didn't know. Therefore, it gives it an authority that other witnesses, or whatever we choose to call them, didn't have.
West Midlands police have long suggested that others not arrested were responsible for planning and ordering the pub bombings. But they've always insisted that the 6 and no one else physically planted the bombs.
There are only 2 of us. These 6 people are innocent. I have never met these 6 guys before in my life. The first I ever saw of them was when I saw photographs of them in the papers, on television.
But could the 6 still have somehow bombed the second pub?
We went through the back door of the Mulberry Bush, and he says to me to go up and order a couple of drinks. This I did, and when I got my drinks, I turned round and see that he had found a table and chairs just to the right of the back door as you walk in. It was also as close to the wall as you can possibly get. I put the drinks down, and he said to me, "Are you okay now?" I said I was. He says everything's going to be fine. Again, I looked at his watch, and he says, "Right, it's time to go." And we got up and walked out. He left his bag where we were sitting.
Dead.
When I got home, I didn't hear any explosions. I thought it was a bit funny, like maybe it hadn't gone off or something. So I went in and turned on the television set. And it wasn't on a couple of minutes when a news flash came on across the screen that 2 bombs had gone off in the centre of Birmingham and that there were many injuries.
Hugh Callaghan, one of the Birmingham 6 who confessed to bombing the Mulberry Bush, said he'd put a bomb in a plastic bag outside the pub. Billy Power, the other one of the 6 to confess, said he'd put 2 plastic bags of bombs by the jukebox in the centre of the pub. Again, under the rubble of the Mulberry Bush, the clearest evidence of where the bomb had actually been planted. A hole more than 3 feet wide blasted through the concrete floor. Again, its precise location has never been published. Again, we used a plan to challenge the bomber to mark where the bomb was planted.
I went to the bar, and when I came back with the drinks, the other person had sat, and that was here, somewhere here. He was sitting facing this way here, and he placed his bomb here.
Again, within a few feet.
I think the most significant feature is the fact that this particular person obviously has a very specialised and detailed knowledge of the interior of these 2 pubs, which in my view could not have been obtained unless he had actually been there and placed the devices.
This was the bench I was sitting on. And it was under the bench that I placed the bomb.
One photograph among the mass of pictures and plans had a remarkable impact on the man who admits the bombings. In seconds, he located this picture as the alcove where the bomb was planted in the tavern in the town.
My immediate reaction is that all those people that were in there got killed. People who are totally innocent, probably just out for a quiet drink. It's just one big horrible mistake. It was never intended to be. Never intended to be.
With the evidence that we have seen tonight, I would expect the Home Secretary to act at once, to follow up the contents of this particular programme, leading to an early release of the Birmingham 6.
There's a lot of changes have got to be made, but out of these cases, out of the sort of information we've had tonight, is the material on which there can be a change in the law. In the meantime, what matters is nobody who is innocent should remain in jail. That's the question that a Home Secretary has to answer in the short run. This is the value of this documentary tonight.